Americans love scenery. We want to see it all, from one coast to the next, Mount Rushmore down to the Everglades. So hop into a Chevy Malibu and take the scenic route. It's the car you knew America could build. There's a place where people count on friendships they can trace back generations, where they can count on the same stool at the coffee shop waiting for them every morning. This place is called Glen Ellen, and you can find it in every bottle of Glen Ellen wine. This is craft brewed Herman Joseph's, the smoothest, easiest drinking specialty beer in the entire solar system. And I believe you'll find drinkable in the dictionary right after don't order a beer you can't drink. Zoingo! Boingo! The freestyle pogo with more boing, more bounce. Bounce further, bounce higher with Zoingo Boingo. To see what makes Arrowhead Mountain Spring water different from those other waters, you have to go back to the source. And with Arrowhead, that means going back a little farther and longer than most. Between security challenged and security strengthened, there's one important word: how. And it is the how that makes all the difference to our nation and our world. Lockheed Martin. We never forget who we're working for. What makes Kraft Singles so good? 2 out of every 3 kids don't get the recommended amount of calcium. But with Kraft Singles, they get a good source of calcium and the taste they love. Kraft Singles. Magic every single time. Throw boring overboard with a new real meal from Long John Silver's. A meal worthy of a plate, just $4.99. Only at Long John Silver's. We may not all be geniuses, but we can all do something smart. Introducing the Hyundai 199 Sonata Lease. It's a smart deal on a really smart car.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
The saints go marching in. When the saints go marching in, wanna be in the number. When the saints marching in.
Thank you. Now, Varney and Company.
Next week, for sure, the SCOTUS hearing. John Lonsky, Emily Sturge, thank you so much for being here this morning. Don't miss Marie Bartiromo's Wall Street tonight at 7 p.m. right here on Fox Business. I'll talk with the U.S. Ambassador to China, David Perdue. And on Sunday, don't miss Sunday Morning Futures. I'll be talking with the co-founder of NVIDIA, CEO Jensen Huang, my special guest Sunday. Varney and Company picks it up right now. David Asman in for Stu.
I never miss Sunday Morning's Future. Never, ever, ever. It's the only one I watch, Maria. Thank you very much. And good morning, everyone. I'm David Asman in for Stuart Varney. Well, more big tech earnings reported yesterday after the bell, and there were some real blowouts. Amazon surging pre-market. It's up about 13% now in pre-market. The AI boom, of course, helping to fuel stellar growth in their cloud unit. Meanwhile, Apple CEO Tim Cook says they're going to have the, quote, best ever holiday quarter. Well, that's helping boost the tech-heavy NASDAQ. It is up pre-market, doing quite well. The Dow and S&P also up in pre-market. But look at that NASDAQ down at the bottom, up over 1.25% right now in pre-market. Let's look at the yield on the 10-year Treasury. It is about flat. In fact, exactly flat, 0.0, going nowhere at 4.1. 2-year Treasury up just one tick to 3.62. Bitcoin, meanwhile, is up a little bit as well, almost $2,000, more than a little bit, up to 109,600. Oil is up 40 cents. Still pretty low, though. It's at $60.96. The national average price of gas was $3.04 nationally, but guess what? In California, sorry, folks, it is $4.62 in California. On the show today, new Fox poll show Zoran Mamdani Mamdani's lead over Andrew Cuomo is narrowing, but Mamdani is still ahead by 16 points. In the New Jersey gubernatorial race, Fox News polling shows Mickey Sherrill's lead over Jack Ciattarelli widening. She's now up by 7 points, but it's very, very sketchy there. No more trouble, meanwhile, at the airports as the shutdown enters day 31. Wow, it's been that long. More than 700 delays and over 200 cancellations so far. President Trump says it is time to go to the nuclear option and get rid of the filibuster on shutdown so that Republicans can pass a clean spending bill. Kamala Harris says, meanwhile, that the voting age should be lowered to 16. Why? Because of climate change. You just can't make this stuff up. Plus, we're going to be taking you to one of the scariest towns in America on Halloween Day, known as Monsterville. Ooh. We cover it all on this Friday, October 31st, 2025.
And there you go, the Ass Man subbing for good old Stuart because Stuart wants to take a 3-day weekend. Well, good for him. Anyways, nonprofit news now. Back in a minute. Thank you. So on the deal with China, you have the controversy now between Donald Trump and the Democrats. Donald Trump says that it was on a scale of 1 to 10, it was a 12, and the Democrats have now come out and said that Donald Trump's deal is a 0, that there's nothing good about it, etc. And all this is really about is ratings for the news people. This is why we want nonprofit news. In a nonprofit news environment, nobody would have broadcast the Democrats' response because it's just fiction. But the Democrats know and understand media better than the Republicans do. They know and understand that controversy sells. And so that all they have to do in order to get airtime is to simply contradict anything that Donald Trump says or that his administration says. They say up, then Democrats say down. Okay, and then the news people are going to rush in to record that and broadcast it for ratings, not for information, not because they want to make sure that the electorate is better informed, because none of us are. The Democrats' response is ridiculous. So nobody's better informed because of it. But Fox News and everybody else will get higher ratings, more eyeballs on screen, more people watching, and that means that they will get bigger profits. And everybody can get a new Rolex for Christmas, that kind of thing. But with a nonprofit news environment, it wouldn't happen. That's not the standard. Controversy's not the standard. The standard becomes news. News. What is news? What is not only what is new, but what is valuable? What is information that the viewers need to have? Okay, news becomes necessary. Right now, you could skip most of what passes for news. You could skip Fox. You could skip CNN. You could skip them, and you're not missing anything. This is one of the reasons why people look to social media, maybe the reason people look to social media for their news, because they know they're not going to get it from cable or over-the-air programming. They're just not, because those people are more interested in profits than in information. It doesn't have to be that way. We can demand non-profit news now. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, a little bit from our friend John Kobylt.
Oh, that was crazy.
That was crazy.
Yeah, I just saw the replay of it actually online because, of course, Twitter works its magic.
All the ghoul sites, yeah.
And so basically the guy was speeding on the freeway going about 149 miles an hour, and he hits the driver's side back bumper of a car ahead of him and goes flying off the motorcycle in all the debris and everything.
Oh, my God. What was weird is Eric was here in the studio, and he just turned on the TV so he could track the chase. And I was saying when I was in Iceland, which is very peaceful, I opened up, I'd read the news like once a day, right? And I opened up the news one morning, and there were all these photos and videos of the guy who tried to climb over the barrier. He was getting chased by the cops, and he climbed over the highway barrier and got run over repeatedly on the freeway. And I closed my iPad. It's like, I do not want to see Los Angeles news. This is disgusting.
Okay, so what a hypocrite. John Hypocrite Kobylt. He's a hypocrite about everything. And here he is saying on his show, this isn't an aside, this isn't it sitting at a coffee shop somewhere and he says, wow, the news is disgusting. He loves this kind of thing as long as it gets him ratings, because ratings means more money. More money for him means he can buy another beach bike for him and his wife to cruise around Santa Monica on, and maybe another baseball team. Okay, maybe buy himself another home on the rich west side of L.A. So he's a hypocrite. He decries the Los Angeles Times and says, oh, what a nasty rag it is. It's socialist, blah, 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 blah. The very next day, he is quoting an article. Oh, I read this fantastic article in the Los Angeles Times. What? He talks about the former district attorney. What was it? Chacon or some crap like that. Really bad district attorney. Got to agree with him that that district attorney was no good for Los Angeles. No good for anybody. And he goes on and on and on and on. And then one day he says, oh, guess who was at KFI walking around the halls was this district attorney. And I was chasing him around, offering him airtime. Come on to my show. I'll give you 3 hours worth of airtime. Are you kidding? Well, I mean, does he think we're all stupid? Does he think we don't notice this? So anyways, we're going back to this issue where he says, oh, it's disgusting. Los Angeles news is disgusting. It wasn't so disgusting that you didn't watch it, number one. And number two, it's not so disgusting that you won't go ahead and repeat it and describe it on your show. And I'm sure they have a clip of what he's talking about on their website. So again, non-profit news now. Back in a minute. Thank you, and now, motivation.
For most people, the easiest thing in the world to do is to give up and to quit. The easiest thing in the world to do is to complain. Don't take no effort. The easiest thing in the world to do is to be negative. It takes work to have a perspective that see things on the right side of the coin. You got to fight for that. It takes work to show up every single day, and when things are not playing in our favor, to say, you know what, man, it might not play in my favor right now, but I'm going to still show up, and I'm going to give everything I got to it because I value what I'm a part of. It takes work to have the right perspective, and I'm a firm believer that perspective drives performance every day of the week.
That ain't got nothing to do with talent. That's just got everything to do with effort. Nothing else. And the only thing that's kept me around is my effort. Because I wasn't a number one recruit. I wasn't a number one linebacker. I wasn't even a media guy. All I ever knew was effort will get me seen on tape. Effort will get me noticed to get to the league. Effort would one day take care of my mom and my kids. Effort, which is between you and you. Nobody else can give you effort. Effort is with inside, man.
You're not going to be the best You're not going to catch the best if you're not intentional and deliberate. And there are those of you in your space, and whatever you're trying to do, you don't even represent the best in your space, and you're still not giving 120. It doesn't matter if you're interested. It doesn't matter if you're somewhat committed. It only matters if you're fully committed. Where are you in that spectrum? Where would you place yourself? Am I interested in this, committed to this, or am I fully committed to this? You can feel when somebody's not committed, when they're not all in, when they're not dedicated. And there's another level you get to when you go all in, when you do videos every single Monday and ain't nobody paying you. When you come to an engagement and you speak as if you're making the most you've ever made when you're not. When you get up at 6, when you don't have to.
Effort is isolated. The reason why effort is isolated, because nobody can dictate it. Effort is 100% in the mind. No coach, no player, nobody else can make you run to the ball. Nobody else can make you finish a tackle. Nobody else can do it. When you finally figure it out, how to win real battles is found through fundamentals. That's what wins championships. That's what wins battles. Blocking, tackling, and today get tired, because you don't know what tired feels like.
Tired don't mean nothing. Tired is only in the mind. You tell yourself you're tired, you're going to be tired. I don't get tired.
Nobody ain't got to convince me of what I do. I do what I do because I do what I do, because I'm built from something. Because I'm pissed off for greatness. Because if you ain't pissed off for greatness, that means you're okay with being mediocre.
Starting with a little dream, like building your business and saying, I'm going to get out there and I'm going to talk to people and I'm going to work on myself and I'm going to be extraordinary. Because the days slip into weeks, the weeks slip into months, the months slip into years. Before you know it, 1 year has gone by. 5 years have gone by. Well, 1 year's going to go by anyway. Why not get there world class in this business, world class in your life?
Champions are focused on the goal. They don't have time to be doing stuff that's not going to help them toward the goal. So all the little social media, cut it off. Cut it off. Get off of it. Stop Netflix. Who you watching? Watch you. Cut the TV off. It's going to be there. You got a job to do. That's what you're getting paid for. Have some pride. Cut off the TV, son. Cut that doggone football game up. It ain't doing nothing for you. They making millions, you not. More stuff comes to you when you execute, son. Do what you're supposed to do. You ain't no boy no more. The only thing you do for success, there's no discounts. It's sweat, it's blood, it's tears. There is no discount. You can't get 50% off. It's sweat, it's blood, it's tears. There are no shortcuts to success. Stop thinking there are. And stop wanting people to put you somewhere that you didn't earn.
You can't be in love with the idea of success. You can't be in love with the results and not be in love with the work. You have to love the process. You have to love the daily grind. You have to love the lessons learned. You have to love the little victories. You have to love the experiences that the journey provides you. You have to love the relationships. You have to love the whole thing to produce the result that you are in love with. You gotta do a lot of shit that nobody ever sees or thanks you for or rewards you for a long time. And it's not just a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday effort. It's a lifestyle. It's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week commitment.
When I tell you to put forth effort, I'm talking about life and death. The effort that you put forth either is going to bring life to your finances, to your health. When you put forth effort, your money is going to look different when you put forth effort. You look different, and when you don't put forth that effort, it's death. I grant you that if you begin to work to develop your gifts, you'll develop a strong sense of happiness. You'll get a larger vision of yourself.
I want you to feel your center right now, your strength. I want you to inside yourself, promise yourself you're never going to settle. Never settle for less than you can be, do, give, or create. Hold a new standard that you're going to constantly strengthen your state, your focus, your physiology. All you got to decide is surround yourself with the right people. All you got to decide is what you're committed to, what's a must for you. Shift the belief, find what works. When it gets tough, get stronger, and give more. And if you do that each day with enough energy, I'm telling you, the stuff you once dreamed about will be a reality.
And that was a little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, meditation. And that was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, from an account on Instagram called The Older Millennial.
My name is Kat Abou-Ghazaleh. I'm running for Congress in the 9th District of Illinois.
And you committed multiple federal felonies on camera. Why are you trying to play like you're the victim here? You are just getting prosecuted for the crimes you committed, and the evidence against you is airtight because you recorded yourself doing the fucking crimes. You don't get a free pass because you're tiny. You don't get a free pass because you're a woman. You don't get a free pass because you don't agree with what ICE is doing. You don't get a free pass because you're running for office. You committed multiple federal felonies. And not only did you commit each of those crimes, but you fucking did it on camera. This is not a complicated situation. This is not political persecution. They are not coming after you because you're a liberal. They're not coming after you because you oppose ICE. They're coming after you and charging you with a crime because you committed multiple felonies on camera. We have to stop pretending that anything else is needed to prosecute people who commit federal felonies on camera.
And that was The Older Millennial. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now from an account on Instagram called McKenzie SD.
The left is so funny. Workers who don't work, students who don't study, educators who don't educate, and politicians who cannot lead, so they buy votes instead. But somehow they figured it out. They create dependence and call it compassion. They create victims and call it justice. Create laziness and call it equality. And a bunch of dumb people fall for that. Yesterday I made a video about how crazy it is that more than 40 million people here in America are relying on food stamps to get their basic groceries. And then as I did more research, I found out that in Brazil, my home country, we have more than 94 million people receiving some sort of benefit from the government. That's almost half of the country. And this scares me, really, because I know how things work in Brazil, and I know votes are completely bought. These people are going to vote for the ones who keep their checks coming in. And I feel like the same thing is happening now here in America. And now I'm going to say something that is controversial, but shouldn't be. I don't think these people should vote. Honestly, how can you vote freely when you're being bought? Welfare was supposed to be temporary help, but it's become a lifestyle. Worse than that, it's become a political strategy. And that is not compassion.
And that was McKenzie SD from the Instagram channel. I'm going to say that on as far as public assistance is concerned, the key is cheating. What a lot of people do on public assistance, and I've seen it myself firsthand, is people will go ahead and get welfare, and then they go ahead and work. Usually doing things, they might do something that is legal, but a lot of times doing things that are illegal, selling dope, for instance, because welfare doesn't pay you anything. And everybody, even the poor, are ambitious. They want to get ahead. They want to make more money. They want to do more than just be able to pay the rent and go to the grocery store and buy their food. So that's the key. People that really need welfare, great. They should get it. But the people that are getting welfare, that are using it as a foundation for their other interests or businesses, they shouldn't. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now the balance or rest of Chapter 8 from The Collapse of Parenting, What Matters.
Many parents who have never heard of Carol Dweck have nevertheless heard of her famous experiment in which she randomly assigned children to two groups. Each group was given the same math quiz, which was easy. Most students earned a perfect score. In the first group, children were told, "You got a perfect score. You are so smart." Identity. In the second group, students were told, "You earned a perfect score. You must have tried really hard." Behavior. Then children in both groups were given a more difficult math quiz. The students in the first group, who were praised for being smart, did badly on the harder quiz. They gave up too easily. But the students in the second group, who were praised for trying hard, did much better. They kept working on the harder problems until they succeeded in solving them. Professor Dweck believes that if you praise a child for being smart, that child develops a fixed mindset that they have a certain amount of intelligence, that their IQ is fixed. If the child then encounters a problem they can't solve, the child may think, "I'm not smart enough to do this," and the child gives up. Professor Dweck recommends that you instead praise the child for trying hard. Teach them that your intelligence is not a fixed quantity, but that your intelligence instead depends on a growth mindset. If you try harder, you can become smarter. In other words, Dr. Dweck says that you should praise kids not based on their identity, smart versus not smart, but based on their behavior, trying hard versus not trying hard. In the realm of cognitive achievement, motivating kids to learn stuff in school, there is good evidence to support Professor Dweck's belief. But teaching the virtues of conscientiousness may be different. The students at my daughter's school were asked to bring $1 to school to buy a special pencil. My daughter's friend forgot to bring her $1. So my daughter gave her the $1 that she had brought to school to buy the same pencil, which meant that my daughter came home without the coveted pencil. Should I say to my daughter, "That was a very kind thing you did"? Or should I say, "You are a very kind person"? Does it make any difference? If Professor Dweck's rule applies in the realm of virtue, then praising the behavior, "That was a very kind thing you did," would be a better strategy than making a statement about identity. "You are a very kind person." But there is now good evidence that when it comes to teaching virtue, Professor Dweck's approach is precisely the wrong way to go. When it comes to teaching virtue, identity seems to work better than behavior. "You are a very kind person" works better than "That was a very kind thing you did." In one study, students were less likely to cheat when they were told that the researchers were studying the prevalence of cheaters. The proportion of students who cheated more than doubled when researchers instead said that they were studying the prevalence of cheating. Words make a difference. Saying, "Don't be a cheater," identity, is a more effective instruction than saying, "Don't cheat," behavior. Apparently, kids are more comfortable cheating if they don't see themselves as cheaters. Likewise, researchers have recently found that young children are more likely to help with a project if they are encouraged to be a helper rather than merely asked to help. In a study of American high school students, more than 60% admitted to cheating on homework or on tests in the past year. In the same study, more than 80% of the same students said that their own personal ethics were above average. In the minds of many American students, ethical behavior no longer requires not cheating on tests. They do not see themselves as cheaters, even though they did in fact cheat. They see themselves as nice kids who occasionally cheat, but they aren't cheaters. Teach your child that there is no escape from reality. What you do influences who you are. Behavior influences identity and eventually becomes identity. If you cheat over and over, you are or will soon become a cheater. Your actions will over time change your character. These are some of the moral fundamentals which parents used to teach, but which many parents no longer do. Cheating isn't new, but before roughly 1995, the kids who were most likely to cheat on tests or homework were not the academic high achievers. Today, that's no longer the case. Today, the cream of the academic crop is just as likely to engage in cheating compared with students lower down the academic totem pole. Howard Gardner is a professor at Harvard who has been studying academic integrity since the early 1990s. He has said that in recent years, the ethical muscles have atrophied. The attitude which he now finds at the most selective universities, and which he did not find there 20 years earlier, is, we want to be famous and successful. We think our colleagues are cutting corners. We'll be damned if we'll lose out to them. More than 25% of the Harvard class of 2023 admitted to cheating on a closed book test or homework assignment, including 20% of those who said that they had a perfect 4.0 grade point average. Those numbers may be an understatement. In the same survey, the same students estimated that about half of their classmates had cheated during their time at Harvard. Stanford University has traditionally relied on an honor system. Students promise not to cheat, and there are no proctors in the exam rooms. Stanford faculty, aware of widespread cheating, recently voted to change the honor code to allow proctors in exam rooms during exams. Students protested, asserting that the proposed change implied a lack of trust in students and that the presence of proctors in the exam rooms would damage students' mental health. The faculty backed down. In defense of today's American teens, they are immersed in a popular culture which preaches that self-control is the one remaining sin in a world which has otherwise been washed free of guilt and responsibility. If it feels good, do it. And whatever floats your boat, define 21st century American popular culture. Exercising self-restraint in today's teen culture is downright un-American. In the opening chapter, I introduced you to Bill Phillips, father of 4 sons. Remember the breathalyzer? Andrew is the oldest of the 4. Andrew is also one of the most talented athletes I have ever met in more than 3 decades as a family doctor. Early in the summer after 10th grade, Andrew attended a week-long football camp at the University of Maryland. At the end of the camp, the head coach of the Maryland football team called attention to Andrew as the most outstanding player at the camp. Coach Friedgen publicly announced that he would offer Andrew a full scholarship to play football in Maryland at the earliest allowable moment under NCAA rules. I want you to come play with us. I want you to be a terrapin, the coach said to Andrew. Andrew told me that he was flying high at that moment. It's pretty special. when the head coach of an NCAA Division I football team calls attention to how great you are when you still have 2 years of high school left. When Bill Phillips arrived to pick up his son and heard about his son's new celebrity status, he made an unexpected announcement. "I don't think I mentioned this to you," Bill said to Andrew, "but you'll be heading up to Maine next week. Your summer job for the rest of the summer is going to be working on a fishing boat." Bill Phillips didn't ask his son, "What would you think of working on a fishing boat this summer?" He just told Andrew that Andrew would be working on a fishing boat. Sure enough, 1 week later, Andrew was in Portland, Maine, cleaning dead fish guts from the deck of a rusting fishing boat. Bill Phillips owned a fishing business. Andrew's coworker was a convicted felon who had just been released from prison after serving a 15-year sentence for selling drugs. And he was Mexican, and he had become a born-again Christian while he was in the penitentiary, Andrew told me. So there I was, on the deck of this dilapidated boat, listening to this Mexican ex-convict telling me about selling hard drugs and getting busted and coming to Jesus. Definitely not the kind of guy I would meet at my high school. Andrew was attending an elite private high school in Maryland. Bill Phillips didn't preach to his son about conscientiousness and the virtues of hard work. He didn't say anything. He just put his son to work at a tough summer job. Andrew learned the lesson well. At the time, though, Andrew wasn't happy. I did feel a little resentful. Other guys were having all kinds of fun adventures and camping trips, and there I was on this dumb boat, cleaning fish guts off the deck. But now I understand why my dad made me do it, to give me a taste of the real world, to show me something about how other people live. That's how you teach the virtue of hard work. That's also how you teach empathy, not by asking, "How would you feel if you were that man?" but rather by insisting that the adolescents spend a summer alongside someone from a different background so that they can learn the stories firsthand. You don't teach virtue by preaching virtue. You teach virtue by requiring virtuous behavior so that virtuous behavior becomes a habit. There is a notion prevalent among American parents that kids need to be convinced or persuaded that an action is right before the child should be asked to do it. If you want kids to act virtuously, according to this assumption, you must first persuade your child of the rightness of virtuous behavior. That sounds logical. It might even make sense in some circumstances if we're talking about grown-ups. But even for grown-ups, there is strong evidence that the arrow of causality points in the other direction. Behaving virtuously leads people to become more virtuous as a rule. Again, this insight is not new. More than a century ago, the American psychologist William James observed, "Common sense says we lose our fortune, are sorry and weep. We meet a bear, are frightened and run. We are insulted by a rival, are angry and strike." But this order of sequence is incorrect. The more rational statement is that we feel sorry because we cry, angry because we strike, afraid because we tremble, and not that we cry, strike, or tremble because we are sorry, angry, or fearful, as the case may be. There is a 2,000-year tradition along the same lines with regard to virtue. If you compel children to act more virtuously, they actually become more virtuous. In the biblical book of Proverbs, which scholars tell us was written more than 2,500 years ago, we read, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." In other words, if you compel a child to behave virtuously, then when he is an adult, he will continue to behave virtuously. What does the published research have to say about such an approach? I think a fair summary of the empirical research would be that the book of Proverbs is too optimistic. There are no guarantees, but we can tweak that line from the book of Proverbs so that it does align with contemporary research. The line tweaked would read something like this: "Train up a girl or boy in the way they should go, and when they grow up and go away to college, you will have improved the odds." There are no guarantees, but if you instill habits of good behavior and self-control in your son or daughter throughout childhood and adolescence, then the research strongly suggests that you have improved the odds that your child will continue to do the right thing when they move away. Conversely, if you subscribe to the 21st century American notion that parents should let kids be free to do pretty much whatever they want, good parenting means letting kids decide, right? And your son is spending hours a night masturbating over pornography, which has become very common for American boys. And your daughter is spending hours a night editing her pics for her Instagram or scrolling through TikTok. Then what are the odds that when they arrive at college, they will say, now that I have arrived at college, and behold, my peers are spending so much time on social media sites and playing video games, I will nevertheless turn over a new leaf and become a more virtuous person. Not very likely. The Western tradition in parenting is to inculcate virtuous habits into children. Again, this goes way back. In the Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle wrote that a person becomes virtuous by doing virtuous acts. Behavior becomes identity. The historian Will Durant, commenting on Aristotle, observed that we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. The Western tradition begins not only with the Greeks and the Romans, but also with Judaism. For that reason, I will ask your permission to quote one more time from the Hebrew Bible, this time from the book of Deuteronomy. God has just given the commandments at Mount Sinai, and the text says, Vishinantam levanecha. Those two Hebrew words are usually translated into English as teach them diligently to your children, or something along those lines. But that's not what the Hebrew says. It would be easy to say that in biblical Hebrew. The verb would be lamed, to teach. But the verb is not lamed, it is shanein. Shanein doesn't mean to teach. It means to incise, or to chisel in stone, or to cut with a knife. So a better translation would be something like, inscribe these laws, incise these laws in the hearts of your children. Teach them diligently is watered down. You teach virtue by requiring children to behave virtuously. In other words, you ask kids to pretend that they are virtuous before they really are. As psychologist Adam Grant observes, people often believe that character causes action, but when it comes to producing moral children, we need to remember that action also shapes character. As I have already noted, this is not a new idea. Aristotle wrote about it more than 2,000 years ago. In the mid-20th century, C.S. Lewis put the same idea this way. The pretense leads up to the real thing. When you are not feeling particularly friendly, but know you ought to be, the best thing you can do very often is put on a friendly manner and behave as if you were a nicer person than you actually are. And in a few minutes, as we have all noticed, you will be really feeling friendlier than you were. Very often, the only way to get equality in reality is to start behaving as if you had it already. Very often, the only way to get equality in reality is to start behaving as if you had it already. Those words were written more than 70 years ago. They expressed wisdom, which was common knowledge then, but no longer. How you act, what you do day to day, influences the kind of person you are and the kind of person you are becoming. If you act virtuously day in and day out, you become more virtuous. But this process works the other way as well. Former Yale professor William Deresiewicz interviewed graduates of elite American universities who had little sense of what they wanted to do with their lives. So, some of them decided to get a job working for a Wall Street investment bank or management consultancy. If you don't know what your passion is, or what you really want to do, then, as Deresiewicz's interviewees told him, you might as well go to Wall Street and make a lot of money if you can't think of anything better to do. And I have heard similar comments from other young college graduates. Nobody has ever taught them that what you do influences the kind of person you will become. After a year or two in the culture of Wall Street, working hard for companies which are all about making money, many of these kids will absorb that culture, which after all is well aligned with American popular culture. Get what you can while the getting is good. These attitudes once formed are hard to change and will likely influence that young person's choices long after she has left Wall Street. The 21st century assumption is that if you give kids a choice between right and wrong, and you show them why they should make the right choice, then they will make the right choice. This assumption is not based in evidence. It's based in a 21st century guess about human nature. And that guess turns out to be wrong most of the time. Recall our earlier discussion of kids' eating choices in this context. The more reliable and effective approach is to require kids to eat the healthier food for years, to inculcate healthy habits, as well as educating the child in the virtues of healthy eating. But merely hoping that kids will eat foods which are not their first choice is not likely to be effective in a culture that teaches kids that their own desires should be paramount. Whatever floats your boat. A longtime columnist for the New York Times, Jennifer Finney Boylan, published an essay in which she asked these questions. What is school for? What does getting an education actually mean? What should it mean? Here is her answer. Education means enlightening our children's minds with the uncensored scientific and artistic truth of the world. If that means making our own sons and daughters strangers to us, then so be it. According to Boylan, a good education should be like putting kids in a witness protection program. If the person who comes out is easily recognizable as the same person who went in, something has gone terribly, dangerously wrong. In other words, the better the education, the less your child will share the values you taught them when they were young. That may sound brave and noble to some. It is certainly vintage 21st century American. But the moment you begin to unpack it, questions arise. What precisely is the artistic truth of the world? Is the music of Mozart and Beethoven and Brahms closer to the artistic truth of the world than the music of Drake or Bruno Mars or Cardi B? Are the ethics of Lehman Brothers circa 2007 better or worse than the ethics of Mother Teresa circa 1977? Who gets to decide? If one simply sets kids loose in the fragmented chaos of 21st century culture in the hopes that they will discover the artistic truth of the world, what those kids will discover is most likely the popular culture of TikTok, online video games, and pornography. They will have no standard by which to judge Drake or Bruno Mars in comparison with Stravinsky or Mahler. No standard by which to compare the accounting gimmicks at Lehman Brothers with the altruism of Mother Teresa, because no authoritative teacher will have instructed them about a scale of value. Conscientiousness is not innate. Self-control is not innate. Honesty is not innate. To restate, these virtues have to be taught. You must teach them. In fact, the abdication of authority, which is put forward as enlightened wisdom by Boylan and others, is not wisdom at all. It is a dereliction of duty. It is a retreat from adult responsibility. I am not singling out Boylan personally. On the contrary, I have heard the sentiments she expressed presented at leading universities across the United States, at school board meetings in the United States, and from the heads of school at leading public and private schools across the United States and Canada. As University of Virginia professor Talbot Brewer recently observed, we would be astonished to discover a human community that did not attempt to pass along to its children a form of life that had won the affirmation of its elders. We would be utterly flabbergasted to discover a community that went to great lengths to pass along a form of life that its elders regarded as seriously deficient or mistaken. Yet we have slipped unawares into precisely this bizarre arrangement. Courtesy of Silicon Valley and social media and online video games, our kids are now at risk of being indoctrinated into the artistic truth of the world as promoted by the most popular influencers on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitch. Reject the notion of hands-off parenting promoted by Boylan and Company. Think carefully about the virtues you want your child to possess and teach them diligently and incisively, which means, among other things, that you yourself must demonstrate the virtue you want your child to have. Teach your child self-control and restraint, which is no easy task in a culture where the billboards scream, "Live for now." Teach your child that the real world matters more than the world of screens, which may require you to put down your own smartphone and go for a walk with your child. Teach your child that virtue and character matter more than fame and wealth. The stakes are high. The health and happiness of your child. This matters.
And that was the end of Chapter 8, What Matters, from The Collapse of Parenting by Leonard Sachs, How We Hurt Our Kids When We Treat Them Like Grown-Ups. Now, in the beginning of this part of the chapter, he was talking about treating your kids in a certain way that I immediately recognized as manipulative. What he's talking about in terms of identity versus hard work. If you tell a child that they're smart, that's identity. If you tell them that they earned it or that they work hard, but it's manipulative. Because there was when he was saying this at first, I thought, it sounds pretty good. And then I thought, why not? Something's bothering me about it. And I realized what it was manipulation. You're manipulating the child. Now, that's going to work short term, right? You can get away with that once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. But then at a certain point, the child's going to start to understand or know that what you're doing. I'm being manipulated. And manipulation comes off as a form of insincerity. It also is something you manipulate things. You educate people. And that's what he should have been saying here, is you got to educate. The other thing is at the end here, one of the things that he is not picking up on is that there's 2 things you want to do when you're raising your kids. Number 1 is survival. You want to make sure they don't stick their fingers in an electric outlet, they don't run out into traffic, those kinds of things. But there's also another thing that you want to do, and that is you want to give them an edge. That's part of what's going to keep you involved. You want to sit down, and it's fine to teach them 2 + 2 = 4 and teach them how to study and teach them what the capital of Peru is. But what's really going to be important is teaching them about how to deal with the outside world without learning by hitting every pothole in the road. You want to give them an edge. So you want to explain to them things like how to do a budget, how to, if you're going to go to college, you want to teach them about the matriculation process. You also want to teach them about things like the CLEP tests and how those figure into your college experience, and how CLEP tests can make your college experience less expensive and less time-consuming. See, now you're giving them an edge. So that's one of the things that you want to remember. You want to give your kids an edge. Too many parents didn't bother to do that. They made sure their kids went to school, checked their homework, and whatnot, but didn't sit down and explain to them, this is a budget. Our family has a budget. We have an income, and these are all the different things that we spend on. And this is the percentage of our income that we should be spending on each item. For instance, the standard for rent or mortgage is 25 to 28%. No more than 25 to 28% of your income should go to pay rent and or mortgage. So again, giving them the benefit of what you know is just as important as encouraging them to study and take tests. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that skepticism is doubtful.